Imagine you are at work today. You've just finished like this massive presentation.
Oh, the one you've been
Something.
stressing over for weeks.
Exactly, the one keeping you up at night. And your boss walks up, looks you dead in the eye, and says, "That was brilliant. We literally couldn't have done this without you."
Just a totally pure, unfiltered compliment.
Right. And what happens next? I mean, in a logical world, you feel pride, you smile, you say thank you, you just absorb it.
Because you earned it.
Because you earned it. But for a lot of people listening right now, that is not what happens at all. Instead, your stomach drops. Your shoulders physically tense up. You immediately deflect or, make a self-deprecating joke or find a way to minimize your contribution. Your body physically braces for an attack.
It's a full-on threat response.
Yeah. And why? Why does a compliment trigger a threat response?
Well, what if that reaction, that physical flinch, was entirely programmed by, like, a single offhand word your parents used at the dinner table 20 years ago?
It's wild, right? It completely shatters the illusion we all walk around with. The illusion of control.
Exactly. The idea that we are entirely autonomous adults. We think we are in the driver's seat. We think our reactions to our partners or our colleagues are conscious choices we are making in real time.
Right.
But the reality is, well, it's far more mechanistic. Our earliest environment doesn't just shape our psychological memories. It literally writes the physical code for our nervous system.
Yeah.
We are operating hardware that was configured by the ambient noise of our childhood living rooms.
And that hidden architecture is exactly what we are mapping out in today's deep dive. We are looking at the profound, decades-long biological impact of the language used in our childhood homes.
It's such a heavy, fascinating topic.
It really is. We're getting into the specific, lingering physiological damage of words like being called a nuisance or a burden or just being consistently dismissed.
Yeah, those words leave an actual trace.
They do. But we aren't just here to diagnose the problem. The most fascinating part of this exploration, and I love this, is how we can actually hack this ingrained programming.
Which is so empowering.
Yeah. We are going to look at rewriting our own neural pathways using, the most counterintuitive tool imaginable, acting out tropes from action movies.
I know, it sounds bizarre on the surface.
It sounds totally crazy.
But it is actually grounded in some incredibly robust neuroscience. If you have ever felt that frustrating, almost agonizing disconnect between how you desperately want to act in a loving relationship and how your body actually reacts when the moment of vulnerability arrives, we are going to break down exactly why that happens. We were talking about the biology of the glitch.
Okay, let's unpack this. So let's start with this foundational rule from our source material that really sets the stage. There is this terrifyingly absolute concept. What cannot be done inside the home will not happen outside.
That's the core of it.
The idea is that actions, behaviors, and even emotional expressions that were not permitted or, were punished in your childhood home remain unconsciously restricted in the adult world.
Yeah. It's not a rule you consciously follow. It's a limitation your body is actively enforcing on itself.
So it's biological?
Completely. We have to look at how a developing brain categorizes safety. When a child is growing up, their brain is an incredibly sensitive threat detection machine.
Just constantly scanning.
Constantly. It is mapping the environment. What brings warmth? What brings food? What brings screaming? What brings isolation? Let's take a seemingly simple example, laughter.
Okay, laughter?
If a child grows up in an environment that is overly tense, unpredictable, or rigidly strict, unbridled laughter might be seen as disruptive.
Right, like maybe laughing too loudly draws the attention of an angry parent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the child learns that expressing joy audibly is actually a dangerous act. It draws the wrong kind of attention.
So the brain steps in to protect them.
Yes. The nervous system couples the physical act of laughing with a spike in cortisol, the stress hormone. The brain basically says laughter equals danger.
Wow. And then fast forward 20 or 30 years.
Right. You are a successful adult, you're at a dinner party, you are completely safe. Someone tells a hilarious story, and the whole table erupts.
And intellectually, it's funny.
Your prefrontal cortex knows the story is funny. You have the impulse to laugh. But your amygdala, the brain's ancient threat detection center, slams the brakes.
Because it remembers the rule.
It remembers the childhood rule. So your body hesitates. You are unconsciously calculating the timing, scanning the room to make sure it's actually safe to laugh.
And by the time you do, it's weird.
By the time your brain issues the all clear, the moment has passed. And if you do laugh, it comes out sounding forced, mechanical, or just completely out of sync.
It's like an invisible electric fence.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
Like if you have a dog and you put up one of those invisible fences, the dog learns exactly where the boundary is because it gets a shock, right?
Right.
5 years later, you can dig up the wire, turn off the power, throw the collar away, and that dog will still stop dead at the edge of the lawn. It will not cross the line.
Because the boundary is entirely gone in reality, but the behavior remains permanently restricted in the animal's mind.
The fence isn't in the yard anymore. It's in the nervous system. I want you, listening right now, to ask yourself, what is your invisible fence? What is the thing you are hesitating to do?
And that invisible fence dictates so much more than just laughter. It dictates our deepest relational needs. Consider the concept of reliance, asking for help.
Oh, this is a big one.
If a child wasn't permitted to be pampered or wasn't allowed to lean on their parents if every time they had a problem, they were told they were being a nuisance.
They were just told to toughen up.
Right. Grow up and handle it. That child adapts. They build a survival strategy based on radical, isolating independence.
But surely as an adult, when you hit a wall at work, or say you're overwhelmed with a new baby, you know you can ask for help, right? You just might feel a little guilty about it.
That's the logical assumption, but it's not what happens neurologically. For this adult, the literal cognitive option to ask for help does not even exist.
Wait, it doesn't even cross their mind.
It doesn't even cross their mind. It's not that they are weighing the pros and cons of delegating a task and deciding against it out of stubborn pride.
So it's not an ego thing.
No, the very concept of, I can rely on someone else to catch me, is like a file that was never installed in their operating system.
Wow.
When they hit a crisis, their only known protocol, the only neural pathway that has any actual insulation around it, is to isolate, bunker down, and push through alone. Because historically, relying on someone resulted in rejection.
Which creates this incredibly tragic irony, because eventually this person moves out of that restrictive house, they enter the adult world, and society essentially hands them a microphone and say, hey, you're an adult now, you're free.
You can ask for help.
Right, you have rights, you have friends, you have a partner who loves you, you can relax. But instead of feeling this wave of liberation, the person just feels profound, dizzying confusion.
Because freedom requires a framework to understand it.
Yeah.
If you have spent your entire developmental life bracing for the shock of that invisible electric fence, being told you can run anywhere doesn't compute. Your nervous system is still expecting the shock.
It's bracing for it.
Exactly. The tension, the hesitation, the holding back, these aren't just intellectual philosophies you hold about the world. They are somatic realities.
Like physical feelings in the body.
The muscle tension in your shoulders, the shallow breathing, the hypervigilance is baked into your physiology.
So if we are walking around with all these invisible fences, hesitating a half second before we laugh, never asking for help, bracing for impact, we are not as stealthy as we think we are.
We really aren't.
We might think we are presenting this very polished, competent adult avatar to the world, but other people have to be noticing us awkwardly avoiding these imaginary lines.
They do notice, and this brings us to a really uncomfortable phenomenon, which the source text calls the microtells of our upbringing.
The microtell.
Yeah. No matter how much you try to gloss over your past with, like a massive vocabulary, a curated wardrobe, or a highly polished professional persona, the environment you were raised in leaks out.
It just escapes.
It leaks out in these fractional millisecond behaviors that you cannot consciously control. Observant people will notice the discomfort.
And they might not know exactly what happened to you in childhood, but their own subconscious registers that something is slightly off rhythm.
Precisely.
Let's break down the 3 specific tells from our deep dive materials that really expose this. The first one is the timing of making eye contact.
Eye contact is the foundational currency of human connection.
Right.
It's how we establish trust, dominance, submission, safety. But if you grew up in a home where being looked at meant you were being evaluated, criticized, or were making eye contact with an angry, unpredictable parent was actually dangerous.
You learn to avoid the gaze to survive.
Yes. Or you learn to monitor it hypervigilantly. So in adult life, observant people will notice that the timing of your eye contact is just a fraction of a second off.
It's the rhythm. It's like listening to a drummer who is just slightly behind the beat. You might look away just a millisecond too quickly when someone addresses you, which signals evasiveness.
Or submission.
Oh.
Or, conversely, you might lock eyes and hold it slightly too long in this rigid, defensive, unblinking way.
Oh, I've seen that stare.
That rigid stare is the body bracing for impact. It's not a relaxed connection. It's threat monitoring. The spaces between interactions are where the childhood atmosphere bleeds through.
It isn't in the articulate sentence you just spoke. It is in the micro-flinch of your eyelids right before you spoke it.
Exactly. The polyvagal theory, which looks at how our nervous system regulates our facial expressions and vocal tone, explains this perfectly.
Okay, tell me about that.
Your vagus nerve is essentially stuck in a defensive posture, and that translates directly to the muscles around your eyes. It's an issue of rhythm and timing that you can't fake.
Wow. Okay, the second tell is brutally relatable, and we touched on it in the intro. The physical reaction to being praised. I know so many incredibly talented, successful people who completely short-circuit the moment you give them a genuine compliment.
We have to ask why the short circuit happens. In a healthy environment, praise is a gift. It's a social reward that triggers dopamine and serotonin.
It feels good.
Right, it feels good. But what if you weren't praised as a child? Or, even worse, what if praise was only ever used manipulatively?
Oh, like a setup.
Yes. What if "you're such a smart boy" was always followed immediately by "so why can't you figure out how to clean your room without me yelling"?
The compliment is just the bait on the hook.
Exactly. The nervous system learns that praise is not a reward. It is the precursor to a demand, a criticism, or manipulation. So it categorizes a compliment as a threat.
So when a colleague says, "You did a fantastic job on that report," your amygdala fires. Your body physically stiffens.
You deflect it instantly. You might make a self-deprecating joke to lower your own status, or you might actually physically shrink back. To an observant person, it is incredibly obvious.
They see that you aren't absorbing the praise, you are deflecting a perceived attack.
Yes.
It's like someone throws you a beautiful, soft bouquet of flowers, and you throw your forearms up over your face like it's a brick. You're bracing for the impact of the flowers.
That is a phenomenal visual.
And that leads directly to the third microtell, which I think is going to surprise a lot of people listening. The speed at which you express gratitude.
This is a subtle one, but once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Because most people assume that saying thank you quickly is just having good manners. If someone holds the door, you say thanks immediately. How is that a trauma response?
We have to differentiate between polite, settled promptness and a panicked, rushed thank you.
Okay, it's the difference.
If you grew up in an environment where you were made to feel like a nuisance, where your very existence felt like an imposition on your parents' time, money, or energy, then receiving anything from anyone feels intensely dangerous.
It feels like you have just incurred a massive debt that you cannot afford to pay back.
So the thank you isn't actually about the other person.
No, it is entirely about your own survival. When someone does something nice for you, helps you with a heavy box, pays for a coffee, the gratitude is expressed at lightning speed. It's almost aggressive.
It's a hyper-fast, breathless, "oh my gosh, thank you so much."
Yes.
The underlying anxiety is screaming, "I must immediately balance this ledger so you don't realize what a burden I am. Please don't be mad at me for needing help."
That hits incredibly hard. You aren't expressing gratitude to forge a connection with the person. You are expressing it to escape the debt.
You are rushing to neutralize the interaction before it can be used against you.
Because true gratitude has a warmth to it. It has a settled rhythm. The person looks at you, takes a breath, and says, "Thank you." But the rushed gratitude has this frantic, defensive energy.
And this is why it's a tell. The childhood atmosphere of being a nuisance is bleeding entirely through that high-speed interaction. The other person walks away feeling slightly pushed away rather than thank, because the energetic exchange was about defense, not connection.
Now, I can easily imagine you, the listener, sitting in your car or at your desk right now, feeling a rising sense of panic.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
This idea that everyone can see through your carefully constructed adult facade, that your childhood trauma is just leaking out of your pores and the timing of your eye contact or the speed of your thank yous for everyone to judge, it feels terribly exposing.
But this is the exact moment we need to completely reframe this fear. This is crucial. When observant people see through your facade, when they notice these micro-tells, it is not a flaw that you should be blamed for. It is not a moral failing. It is not a sign of weakness. It is merely a trace. It is a scar left by your environment.
I want to just pause on that and let the listener really absorb it, because instead of being terrified of being found out or seen as awkward, understanding why you have these tells actually lightens the emotional load.
It really does.
If you have these tells, if you flinch at praise, if you rush your thank yous, if you can't make eye contact, You are not broken. You are not failing at being a normal adult. You are just wearing a cast on a bone that healed slightly off-center.
That's a beautiful way to frame it.
You don't have to be terrified of being found out because what people are finding out is just the history of your survival.
Realizing that it is a physiological scar is what allows you to stop judging yourself for the flinch. But of course, the conscious mind hates the flinch.
Oh, the conscious mind wants to completely eradicate the past, right? We want to be in total control. Which brings us to one of the most frustrating psychological loops human beings experience, the paradox of, I will never be like them. I don't know anyone who hasn't experienced some version of this. You make a vow. You practically take a blood oath.
I will never do that to my kids.
Exactly. You say, when I have kids, I will never yell at them the way my dad yelled at me. Or when I become a manager, I will never micromanage my team the way my first boss did. You swear to never replicate the environment that wounded you.
And yet,
under stress or fatigue, what happens? The exact same toxic, harmful words slip right out of your mouth.
it is a profoundly devastating experience.
Yeah.
You hear your mother's or father's exact tone of voice, their exact phrasing, coming out of your own mouth, inflicting the exact same wound on your child or your partner that you spent your whole life trying to heal from.
Okay, I have to lean in here and play devil's advocate for the listener, because the immediate cynical reaction to this, especially from people who haven't studied psychology, is, isn't this just a lack of willpower?
Right, that's what everyone assumes.
Like, if you swear you won't say those things and you know exactly how much they hurt, but you do it anyway, aren't you just failing? Aren't you just being weak and choosing the easy way out?
That is the common societal assumption, but our sources on neuroscience vigorously push back against it. It is emphatically not a weakness of will.
Okay, then what is it?
We have to look at the architecture of the brain, specifically how the nervous system operates under pressure. Your willpower, your logic, your moral vows, those are all governed by the prefrontal cortex. That's the evolutionary newest part of the brain, right behind your forehead. It's the CEO.
The part of the brain that makes the vow in the first place.
Correct. When you are calm, rested, and safe, the CEO is in charge. It can filter your thoughts. It can choose its words carefully. It can say, I am feeling frustrated with my toddler, but I am going to take a deep breath and speak calmly. But the prefrontal cortex is an energy hog. It requires a massive amount of metabolic resources to operate. When you are exhausted, financially stressed, or your toddler is screaming at 6 a.m. and you haven't slept, your brain perceives a biological threat.
It thinks it's an emergency.
And in an emergency, the brain cannot afford to run the energy-intensive CEO. So, bathed in cortisol and adrenaline, the prefrontal cortex essentially goes offline. It shuts down to conserve energy.
Wow. So who's driving the car?
Control is instantly handed over to the amygdala and the deeper, older structures of the brain. The childhood circuits take priority when the brain is stressed. The brain defaults to its deepest, most heavily myelinated neural pathways.
Okay, myelination. Let's really deeply unpack that, because it's the physical key to why we repeat our parents' mistakes.
Myelin is a fatty substance that coats your neural pathways. Think of it like the rubber insulation around an electrical wire. The more a neural circuit is used, the thicker the myelin coating becomes, and the faster and more efficiently the electrical signal can travel down that path. Repeated words, repeated behaviors, the ambient emotional reactions of your childhood, these aren't just abstract memories.
They are physically engraved into the nervous system.
Yes. Every time your parent yelled, a circuit fired. Over 18 years, that circuit gets fired thousands of times. The myelin gets incredibly thick.
So the neural pathways representing your parents' toxic reactions are essentially like 8-lane, newly paved superhighways in your brain. And your conscious vow to be a gentle parent or a calm manager, a vow you only made a few years ago, is a tiny, unpaved dirt road.
Exactly. Under severe stress, when the brain needs to react instantly, it doesn't take the dirt road, it takes the superhighway. The electrical signal of your frustration naturally flows down the path of least resistance.
That is why your mother's words come out of your mouth.
It's not a moral failure. It is a neurological default.
That makes so much sense, and it totally removes the moral judgment from that moment of failure. It explains the physical engraving of trauma. For example, the text points out that a child raised with yelling will have a body that physically stiffens at loud noises as an adult.
Because the auditory processing center in their brain has wired a thickly myelinated bypass connection straight to the fight-or-flight response.
Just skipping the logic center entirely.
Yes. The startle reflex is hypercalibrated. A door slams, and before the prefrontal cortex can say, it's just the wind, The amygdala has already flooded the body with adrenaline.
And circling back to the praise issue, it's the exact same mechanism, right? The brain literally cannot process the data of a compliment as purely positive. The data has to run down the superhighway of threat detection first.
Because in their historical data set, praise equaled manipulation. The system is just doing its job based on the data it was trained on.
So the essential takeaway for you listening right now is this. Do not blame yourself the moment you realize you've repeated a toxic pattern.
Right. The shame spiral, beating yourself up, calling yourself a terrible parent or a broken partner, only spikes your cortisol further.
Which makes it worse.
It adds more stress, which keeps the prefrontal cortex offline, which only reinforces the old toxic circuits. Recognizing that the circuit exists, catching yourself in the act, and understanding the biological why behind it is the necessary first step to changing it.
It's like finding a glitch in your computer's code. You don't scream at the monitor for being evil, you just isolate the line of code so you can rewrite it.
Exactly.
But before we can rewrite the code, we need to fully understand the difference between the code we want and the code we currently have. This brings us to a fascinating contrast in linguistic environments. Let's look at what the source calls the vocabulary of affection.
This is a crucial distinction. Let's contrast a warm environment with a cold one. Imagine a home where words of affection, thank you, I love you, I appreciate you, fly around daily.
It's a warm, emotionally regulated environment.
In that space, for a developing child, expressing love, acknowledging someone's help, validating someone's presence, it all becomes as natural as breathing.
As natural as breathing. Let's stick with that metaphor. Because when you breathe, you do not think about it. You don't say, okay, contract diaphragm, pull oxygen into lungs, expand rib cage. It operates autonomously. It's a biological default.
Yes, for those raised in affectionate homes, passing love to partners, to friends, to the next generation requires zero conscious effort. The neural pathway for expressing warmth is their superhighway.
Their default state is just open.
Open, regulated, and expressive. When they feel love, the words leave their mouth instantly.
But contrast this with the cold environment, the home where a child is repeatedly called a nuisance, where emotional expression is met with eye rolls, silence, or punishment. In that environment, a massive physical resistance to expressing affection develops.
We have to contrast the breeding metaphor against this resistance reality. For those raised in negativity or emotional scarcity, the physical circuit for expressing love is literally underdeveloped.
So it's not just dormant, it's actually weak.
It's like a muscle that has been immobilized in a cast for 20 years. It is completely atrophied.
So even if they feel love deep down, even if they look at their spouse across the room and have a desperate, overwhelming, burning desire to say, I love you, or to just walk over and give them a hug, they can't just do it naturally.
No, they become incredibly awkward. And we need to be very compassionate about this. This awkwardness, this hesitation, this sudden inability to speak it is not a lack of love. It is a lack of the biological wiring to express it.
Wow.
The feeling is there, burning inside them. The neurochemical cocktail of love is present in the brain. But the translation mechanism, the bridge from internal feeling to external physical action, is broken, or it was never built in the first place.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this perfectly sets up the ultimate dilemma. If the circuit isn't there, but the desire to love is there, you end up with this terrifying chasm between what is in your head and what your body can actually execute.
You end up in a state of profound internal conflict.
It's the experience of knowing the words thank you and I like you intellectually. You understand the dictionary definition. You understand the social utility. You see other people doing it effortlessly. But you find that your body absolutely refuses to move when the moment arrives to use them.
Yeah, your brain says one thing, your body says no.
I want to relate this to the listener. It's like you've read 10 books on how to ride a bicycle, you know all the physics, you understand gyroscopic stability, you know exactly where to put your feet on the pedals, you've watched 100 YouTube tutorials.
Right.
But the second you actually get on the seat and take your feet off the ground, your body has zero muscle memory for balance, and you immediately crash.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. Reading the book doesn't build a myelin. Intellectual understanding does not equal somatic capability. This is a severe mismatch between conscious knowledge and ingrained physical habits.
It's brutal.
Your brain is saying, reach out and hug your partner. They are crying, they need you. And your nervous system, their ancient survival software is screaming, do not move. Vulnerability is dangerous. Physical touch is a trap. Remain perfectly still.
And it feels paralyzing. You are literally trapped inside your own head, screaming at your body to just do the normal, loving thing. And your body is essentially staging a sit-in. It's on strike.
It is paralyzing. However, there is massive, profound hope right here in this specific moment of paralysis. Simply noticing this massive gap between your mind and your body is a huge step forward.
But wait, why is noticing it powerful? If I'm sitting there, paralyzed, unable to hug my crying partner, realizing how broken I am doesn't feel powerful. It feels like it would just induce a shame spiral. Doesn't ignorance feel better?
Ignorance might feel like bliss temporarily, but it guarantees you will never change. You can only start fixing a problem from the exact spot where you accurately define it.
Okay, true.
If you think your inability to express love is a character flaw, if you just assume, I guess I'm just a cold, unfeeling, broken person, you will adopt that as your identity. You will resign yourself to it.
You just accept it.
But the moment you realize, wait a minute, I do feel love, I feel it intensely, I just don't have the physical habits to express it, you have entirely redefined the problem.
It moves from being a moral failing to being a skill deficit.
Precisely. A moral failing feels permanent and intrinsic. A skill deficit is just a mechanical problem. And skills, no matter how old you are, can be learned.
Which brings us to the absolutely wildest, most unexpected part of this entire deep dive. If you accept that it's a skill deficit, how do you learn the skill?
Right. How do you fix it?
If you lack real-life role models for affection, if your parents couldn't teach you because their parents didn't teach them, going back generations, you have to build behavior entirely from scratch. You have to lay down new pavement. And the solution proposed in our source text for this is completely unorthodox. Acting. Specifically, learning how to love by copying characters in movies.
It is a brilliant, highly pragmatic application of neuroplasticity. It's basically fake it till you make it, applied directly to emotional expression and trauma recovery. If you do not have an internal biological template for love, you have to borrow an external one.
But I have to push back hard on this. Because my immediate reaction, and I guarantee you the listener's immediate reaction, is intense skepticism. Acting. Really.
It sounds strange.
If I want to be genuinely loving to my spouse, pretending to be Ryan Gosling from The Notebook seems like almost sociopathic. It feels like a betrayal of authenticity. It feels incredibly fake, manipulative even. If my partner found out I was just reciting lines from a movie, they'd be horrified.
It's completely understandable to have that visceral rejection to the idea. The word acting carries the connotation of deception. It will feel incredibly awkward at first. You will feel like an imposter in your own living room.
So why do it?
Because we have to separate the intention from the form.
Explain the difference.
The intention is your internal desire to love and protect your partner. That is 100% real and authentic. But you lack the form, the physical vehicle to deliver that intention. It's like having a gallon of water and no pitcher to pour it into.
Okay, I like that.
Learning a form is not something to be ashamed of. It is how humans learn everything. Think about learning a martial art or playing the piano. You sit down at the piano and your teacher says, curve your fingers exactly like this. Move your wrist like this.
And it feels completely stiff at first.
You awkwardly mimic the master's form for months. It feels entirely unnatural. It feels fake. But you do it until your body absorbs the mechanics.
So the authenticity of the intention is real, you just need a vessel to pour it into. The movie character provides the vessel.
Yes, it is a structured mold for your raw emotion. Because the authentic expression your nervous system currently defaults to is paralysis. So you have to override it.
Okay, I can buy that. The intention is real, the vessel is borrowed, but what kind of vessel are we actually talking about? Because I joked about Ryan Gosling, but that leads to a revelation from the text that absolutely blew my mind. When we talk about borrowing movie scripts, we aren't talking about romantic movies. We aren't talking about grand poetic speeches in the rain.
No, we're not.
We're talking about action movies.
This is arguably the most insightful, counterintuitive mechanism in this entire psychological framework. We culturally assume affection looks like a sweeping romantic drama.
Right.
But for someone whose nervous system violently rejects verbal vulnerability, someone whose amygdala fires the moment they try to say, I love you, a romantic drama is an impossible leap. It's an alien language. If you try to jump straight to reciting poetry, your nervous system will shut you down.
So why action movies? What is it about an action hero that hacks the nervous system?
Think about the classic archetype of the father or the protector in an action film. Think of a Liam Neeson character, or Pedro Pascal in The Last of Us, or even older tropes like the stoic cowboy. These characters are usually gruff. They are quiet.
Yeah, they definitely don't talk about their feelings.
They do not sit around having deep, emotionally articulate conversations about their feelings. They might even be emotionally distant.
But when danger arises or when the chips are down, their actions are incredibly loud.
Yes, they physically place themselves between their child and the threat. They protect, they provide, they make sure the structural environment is safe.
They make sure the seatbelt is tight, they check the perimeter, they hand the kid the last piece of food without making a big deal out of it, they stand in the doorway while the family sleeps.
This teaches a profound, alternative lesson to the traumatized brain. Love can be shown entirely through physical structure and action when words fail. For someone who physically cannot force the vulnerable words "I love you" past their lips, watching that action hero offers a completely different script. It is a script of doing, not saying.
It's like finding a back door into the nervous system. If the verbal circuits are heavily mined and trapped by childhood trauma, you just bypass them completely. Use the physical spatial circuits instead.
Exactly. The action hero provides a model of unverbalized emotion. By repeatedly watching these scenes and then mimicking them in your real life, you begin to observe the nuance of how love looks when it is purely structural.
It's in the attentive gaze.
It's in the attentive gaze, yes. It's in the reliable presence. It's the act of simply showing up on time, every time. These are physical behaviors you can mimic without triggering the massive cortisol-spiking hurdle of verbal vulnerability.
I am just marveling at the idea of using a stoic action hero as an emotional blueprint for breaking generational trauma. It is so surprisingly empowering.
It really is.
When you are trapped in the cycle of your parents' mistakes, you feel like a passive victim of their script. You feel doomed. But the moment you decide, you know what, today I can't say the words, but I am going to act like this stoic, protective hero who quietly shows up for his kids, that is taking total control. You stop being the victim of the old script and you become the director of a new one.
You are actively choosing a new input for your brain to process. You are taking physical action, which starts to lay down new tracks in the nervous system.
But of course, this brings up the ultimate question, the elephant in the room. Does it stay acting forever? Do you just spend the rest of your life playing a character in your own home? Does a 60-year-old man look back on his marriage and realize he just spent 40 years playing a slightly softer version of John Wick?
Right. Nobody wants a marriage or a relationship with their kids that is fundamentally based on a lifelong theatrical performance. We need to know how the fake becomes real.
Yes, the boundary where acting becomes real. Tell me how that works.
And this is where the science of neuroplasticity gives us our beautiful resolution. Imitating a movie character doesn't stay fake forever. With repetition, the awkwardness fades. The actions literally seep into the biology of the body.
Break down that transition. What is happening in the brain when the acting stops being acting?
Every single time, you consciously choose to enact the form of love, whether it's the quiet structural protection of the action hero or forcing yourself to pause and practice a calm, unrushed thank you. You are firing a brand new neural pathway.
Okay.
The first 10 times you do it, it takes immense conscious effort from the prefrontal cortex. It drains your energy, it feels clunky.
That's the feeling of acting.
Yes. But as you force that pathway to fire repeatedly, day after day, the brain recognizes a new pattern. It says, okay, we're using this circuit a lot now, we need to insulate it. So it starts wrapping myelin around that new pathway.
It paves the dirt road.
It paves the dirt road. And as that myelin thickens, the electrical signal travels faster and easier. Suddenly, what was conscious, agonizing effort becomes an unconscious, automatic reflex.
The circuit is overwritten. The boundary is officially crossed. The acting seamlessly crosses over into authentic reality because your body has finally learned the physical rhythm of the new behavior.
The intention was always yours from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Now, the physical mechanism is yours too. You aren't pretending to be the hero anymore. Your nervous system has actually adopted the hero's reflexes. The form and the intention have merged into true authenticity.
And the ultimate goal of all this uncomfortable acting, all this rewiring is something incredibly profound. Through this patient practice, you will eventually be able to offer natural words and actions of love to your partner or your children.
Yeah.
You are doing something heroic. You are taking the words, the safety, and the structural love you wished you had received as a child. You are manufacturing them yourself from scratch, and you are handing them to the future.
It is the ultimate act of psychological alchemy. You are turning the traumatic deficit of your past into the emotional abundance of your future. You are stopping the generational transmission of trauma dead in its tracks, and you are starting a brand new transmission of deliberate, practiced affection.
What a journey this has been. We started by looking at the invisible fences of our childhood homes, how a restrictive environment literally wires our bodies to hesitate, to flinch at praise, and to rush our gratitude.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We exposed those awkward microtells for what they really are. Not moral flaws, but physiological scars. We learned that yelling at our kids when we're stressed isn't a lack of willpower, but a brain defaulting to its oldest, most heavily paved superhighways.
Exactly.
And most importantly, we learned that we don't have to be victims of that early programming. We can use the framework of a stoic action hero to bypass our verbal paralysis, borrowing a mold until our own neuroplasticity paves a new road. I want to remind you, the listener, that while you might not have had a perfect home, while you might have been called a nuisance, or made to feel small, or forced to brace for impact, you do not have to stop there. The script is yours to rewrite.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the environment we grew up in was a movie we were forced to watch. The lines we absorbed were a script we didn't write. But neuroplasticity and the sheer courage to awkwardly act out a new way of being gives every single one of us the director's chair.
So, as you go about the rest of your day, as you interact with your colleagues, your partner, your kids, I want to leave you with this final thought. If our parents' words programmed our current reality and we are now acting out new scripts from movies to reprogram ourselves, what movie are you currently playing for the people around you? Are you unwittingly acting out a script of limitation, a tragedy where love is scarce and everyone is a nuisance? Or are you actively filming the sequel where the cycle breaks, the cameras are rolling in your living room right now? What scene are you about to shoot?